Hello and welcome to Digital Marketing Masterclass Live. Today we have a very, very special episode. Today we're talking about disruptive technology and how it is changing the landscape of marketing. And as always, I try to bring in some of the best subject matter experts on the planet to talk through this. And today I thought it'd be a good idea to bring in our partner from a company called Liine, who are making massive waves in the healthcare technology and marketing and analytics space. So Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Excited to be here.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. So before I get into Liine, tell me a little bit about your bio and your background so that our viewers can kind of get to know you.
Sure. I have been a salesperson my entire career. I started selling in college in the summertime. I had a pretty wild summer job for 4 summers where I knocked on doors and sold educational books and software. Really interesting experience. Knocked on about 15,000 doors, and part of it was crazy, part of it was really hard, part of it was fun, but I fell in love with it, and just knew I was going to be an entrepreneur from that experience. And so, worked in a couple different industries after college. Payment processing was one, like early stage health tech companies. Did some sales consulting. And then about 5.5 years ago, a guy that I knew from college and I started Liine. And so my position now is Chief Revenue Officer. So anything customer facing, I'm responsible for. We'll talk about our business in a little bit, but we analyze call recordings in healthcare practices. And so in terms of a subject matter expert, I've analyzed personally somewhere between 10 and 15,000 new patient calls, and trained hundreds of front staff members. So a lot of repetition in the world of healthcare specialties. And outside of working, favorite things to do, love to play golf, and I'm a huge Carolina basketball fan. So I'm in a good mood right now after a game the other day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now tell me a little bit about Liine itself. Okay, like the company, the platform, who it serves, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so we serve practice groups that the main markets that we focus on are orthopedics, ophthalmology, aesthetics, and oral surgery. We'll expand into some other ones, but that's been our primary focus so far. But really, any healthcare specialty practice we could work with. And the problem we solve is all of our customers invest in marketing to drive awareness and new patient leads to their practice or to their business. And the goal, of course, of the first interaction is to schedule an appointment, but they don't have any information on what's happening. And so outside of healthcare, that's why you have a CRM, right? You have salespeople that are logging what they're doing, keeping track of data, using technology to be more efficient and effective at following up with people. But those types of platforms don't really fit in a healthcare practice. So that's where we come in. We have speech analytics AI technology that analyzes all the call recordings between a practice and patients. And so we deliver really good analytics into what happens once leads are reaching out. So the leadership team gets great visibility into that process, and the staff doesn't have to track anything. And then we also automate elements of the follow-up so that they can be more effective at converting people to an appointment.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we use Liine for as a strategic partner is that we have about between 40 and 60% of our client base at any given time is in the healthcare space. And so we tout ourselves and we say, hey, you know what, we're going to develop a system that generates leads, nurtures leads, and then converts leads into clients. And when I say leads, I say patient leads and stuff like that. And the reality is that when I say it converts it into clients, that's not 100% true. And the reason why I say it's not 100% true is, yes, a patient may have filled out a new appointment form, but that doesn't mean that 5 days later they're sitting in a doctor's office. In fact, there's a lot that can get screwed up between a form submission and actually booking them for an appointment and them arriving. All right. And so I know this sounds terrible. It's almost like I'm shooting myself, my own marketing message in the foot. I'm very transparent with doctors. Like, I can bring the horse to water. I cannot guarantee that they will drink. And so what we tried to do is we tried to say, hey, you know what? If we're not increasing patient volume, right? I've got a big problem, because I'm telling the marketing guy it's working, and the doctors might be yelling at their own marketing guy and saying, well, how come I'm not seeing more patients? And so what happens here is what we do is we bolt on the Liine technology into our system. So now I can see from the point of origin all the way through the nurturing, all the way through the conversion of a new appointment form. And Liine seamlessly connects to their EMR and their phone system. And I can figure out everything post form submission to find out if they actually closed. So with the help of Liine, we
Yep.
are in a spot where we're actually measuring true conversion. We actually believe we're one of the few companies in the country that does this from a HIPAA compliant standpoint. Yeah.
That's
Yep.
true.
Now,
That's
I'm
true.
going to do something that you're not allowed to say, but because we're on a podcast, I can say this, and then you can nod your head and maybe agree. But here's the deal.
I'm really
I know.
intrigued.
I'm a healthcare company. I'm a hospital, I'm orthopedic practice. In that journey, I have gone and I have found the best possible surgeons for our practice. All right. I have made sure that I've built systems around them. This is buildings, state-of-the-art technology, executives that can work on strategy to bring in patients to create an amazing patient experience. We have done every single thing possible to generate more patient leads, to get them the best possible experience possible, to basically get on with their life and do things, like to play again, to live again, to do all that stuff. You have this huge funnel, and it all comes down to someone who's going to book client calls. And that person commonly has the least education, the least training, and the most turnover, everything. So they have, they didn't go to medical school. They didn't do any of this stuff, but they literally are the gatekeepers of the future of this whole massive organization. It all comes down to the bottom of the funnel with the least qualified people that are driving the entire business. That's the door to all of your sales, all of your, you know what I mean? Is that a true statement? And so this is what happens is that we talk to health centers, like practices and things like that. And they're just like, well, we want to know more about that, because you're not allowed to say it. You know what I mean? You're not allowed to say that I have a weak link in the chain, and that weak link in the chain determines my entire business. That we spent millions of dollars in cost per acquisition to get people to the door. But if that person is not trained right, isn't asking the right questions, has a bad day, whatever it is, they're not booking the appointment. Those things could have been completely preventable. You know what I mean? But it's also a black box, as you don't know, because you can't sit next to them every call, every day to figure that out. So you try to do traditional training. You try to get them into a boardroom where they're playing with their iPhone, trying to figure this out, right? Until now. Now you have Liine. What are you doing?
I can talk now, right? No,
Yeah,
no
I'm
more
sorry. I
nodding.
know, it's not like this
No,
preamble.
no, I'm kidding. No. It wasn't. I want to hear what you. That wasn't. Didn't mean it
Yeah,
like that. I just want to make sure I was doing what
yeah.
I need. You nailed it there. And one thing to think about too, the black box
Mhm.
part. Staff performance is huge, right? I mean, they're the people that are handling the call. There's other operational elements too, right? There are oftentimes things outside of the staff's control, protocols, scheduling issues, whatever, that could keep a patient from converting. And that's important as well. And so the most important thing we do first is we fill that gap in terms of providing analytics. So it's no longer a black box. The practice, the leadership team, the management team knows exactly what's happening when patients are calling them or they're filling out a web form, and they already know how many people are booking, right? That's going to be in the scheduling system. They don't know how many people aren't booking. That's the opportunity. There's low hanging fruit sitting inside of that funnel in every single practice in this country. That what we found is it's not that complicated to make some slight adjustments to really take advantage of that low hanging fruit. So your question is, what do we do to help with that? First and foremost is the data, right? Our technology is automatically capturing all these insights from the dialogue in the call, right? Was this a new patient lead? Where did it come from? Who handled it? Did they book? If they didn't book, why not? Tons of stuff that gets rolled up in an easy to digest dashboard. Management knows, all right, here's our opportunity, right? Maybe it's a staff member who's got a 20% conversion rate or 20% lower conversion rate than anybody else. Maybe it's a huge increase in scheduling issue because there's not enough capacity because there's been some turnover with providers or something. Whatever it is, they know what it is, and then they can dig into what's going on in those interactions and find the solution. So most important takeaway there is having data, having objective visibility into what's going on, and once you have that, then you can start to solve for it. With regard to staff performance, we have, just because our company's analyzed 1.5 million and counting new patient calls, and so we've spotted trends, right? These are the team. There's some teams that have the highest conversion rate. There's some that have the lowest. There's a big gap in between. So we know what the differences are, and we often work with management teams to share just the key insights of what happens in that first call when a top performing practice handles it, and so they can take that information and manage and coach and train their staff, and then they can see the impact of that in the data. So it all comes back to, you've got to have a way to measure exactly what's going on. Otherwise, you're not going to be solving the right problems and even knowing if the solution is working.
So what we try to do with our clients for marketing is we try to help them get to a spot where they make data-driven decisions about their marketing. Now, where I feel like the relationship with you guys is allowing us to make data-driven decisions about how to basically schedule that call. And some of the things that I love about your program, and we're going to probably, if you're a viewer here, you're wondering, are we going to see a demo? I'm going to have Charlie add a demo at the very end of this call, and I'll give you the minute mark in the description so that we can add that to this, just because I know we're talking,
Sure.
we're talking a lot of theory right now, but I do want to make sure that you can see a demo. One of the things I would like to be able to do, though, is talk about when you have your software, some of the data-driven decisions that I like to see are, there's 8 critical questions or something like that every phone representative needs to ask. And so if calls aren't booking, I can look and I can say, this call didn't book. The software literally tells me the reason why it didn't book. And then I look and I'm like, out of the 8 critical questions, they only asked 2, And then the other metric, I go to one other page and they're like, hey, I don't know that you know this or not, but every time we get calls between the hours of 1 and 2, nothing books. And it's like, wow, it sounds like as soon as they get off of lunch, nobody's motivated to work. You know what I mean? You can talk about different nap time. You can talk about, these are the locations. No matter how hard we try, we can't fill. And so what happens here is the data tells a way different story than our hunches. And now we can start to say, hey, you know what? We don't need to make massive moves. We need to make tweaks. And these constant, trial and errors will improve conversion. They will include even just patient experience, that the phone call is streamlined, that it feels like it's, you know what I mean? Like all of that stuff. And so that's where when I look at your technology, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's where it's at.
For sure.
I should be working for you now, right now, by the way.
Whiff.
Exactly.
But I'm digging it, man, and that's why our partnership, it's just a match made in heaven, right? You guys we're sitting in this funnel next to each other, and it just makes sense that because our platform is going to be way more useful and valuable if leads are being driven in, and you guys are the best we've seen at doing that. So we've really enjoyed working with you guys.
So if you're a healthcare company, you're hearing that. Boop. No, just kidding. Yeah. No.
There's the plug.
Right. But in all honesty, one of the jokes we had was,
it's true.
You have other marketing partners, and they're actually almost threatened by your service because your service very easily says this is the point of origin of what's working and what's not. And
Yeah, and it's less of a partner, right? It's like we just have to work with them to turn our technology
yeah.
on, right? So we got to integrate into the website and be able to capture the forms and so forth. So we get
Mhm.
introduced to everybody's marketing agency, and a lot of them are
Mhm.
worried about the technology like uncovering something
Yeah.
negative, which is the opposite of the mentality that they should
Mhm.
have. And that's what was refreshing about you guys. I mean, you even did it at the beginning of this podcast,
Mhm.
right? Where you know what the goal is here. The goal is getting one surgeon told me a couple weeks ago, getting butts in seats, right? I want people sitting in my
Yeah,
consult
totally.
room. That's what I care about. And so a lot of agencies sort of feel like they might not actually be having an ultimate impact on that, and they're
Mhm.
worried that that's going to be shown, and that's not a good thing.
Yep.
So it was very refreshing to, learn about your mentality and how it's
Yeah.
aligned
I
with
mean,
ours.
transparently, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but so we've been working in healthcare for 20 years. The Everything that the client sees is usually the tip of the iceberg of what we're capable of doing. It's just commonly that the budget needs us to create short-term deliverables and long-term initiatives. And the long-term initiatives,
Right.
whether it's SEO or expanding how your brand is viewed in different locations, stuff like that. Long long story short is that we don't have this really small bag of tricks. And so I could see the average agency getting exposed by saying, oh, you got to put all your eggs in
Mm,
social media. And then your tool says, oh, by the way, you're getting no leads from social media.
that's
If
right.
we're not getting any leads from
That makes
social media,
sense.
that's totally fine by me because we're so comprehensive that there's about 15 other directions I can go. I want to fail as quick as possible to know so I can adapt because I've got other things I could and should be doing with my time. And I don't want to double down on things that aren't going to lead to true conversion. You know? Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah. So when you go and you are listening to this thing, how does it make it, how, when your tool listens to the calls, how does it connect to the VoIP? And then do people feel like, hey, you know what? I've got Big Brother listening in my ear. What's that experience like?
Well, the second one is just culture, right? I mean, however you tell, I mean, if you install something in your practice to help it be better and your team reacts negatively, that has nothing to do with the technology. That has something to do with you,
Mhm.
right? And how you interact with your team. So I would, regardless of whether it's line or whatever, that's a culture challenge. In terms of integration, it's really simple. It's just call forwarding, cloud based. So we can integrate into VoIP systems where the calls that we want to analyze get forwarded to us. We immediately push them back in. We also sit on top of the phone system, like on the website, so we can capture really granular marketing attribution, and then we just forward the calls to the practice. So there's a couple different options depending on people's setup, but it is a straightforward,
Mhm.
set of adjustments that need to be made to get us
Mhm.
live.
And then it connects to the EMR as well. Is that correct?
So we do some, not every single one. We're continually working on integrations with that, but we do have an open API so we can push
Mhm.
data, and then there's an export as well. So the shorter answer is we're always able to figure out a
Yeah.
way to help the practice kind of connect the dots when they
Yeah.
need to.
Now that leads to reporting. And so with our clients, we do monthly reporting and quarterly reporting, and built right into our reports is Line. It's not like, well, we're going to get you close to the pin. And then if you really want the answer, why don't you go to Line and tell you what they have? And then you get two sets of data and you got to make sense of it. So
Sure.
tell me about your reporting.
So there's a dashboard. It's real time, and the practice has access to it and can go in and look at it whenever they want to. There's a lot of ways to filter and slice and dice, and in the onboarding process, we have the first call we have. We call it business outcomes review. Um, and basically, it's the people that are on that call. We figure out what their positions are and their responsibilities, and then everyone leaves that conversation knowing, with what I care about and what I need to focus on. How do I go into this thing and spend 5 to 10 minutes and then I'm out? Right now, obviously, if they want to spend more time, that's totally fine with us, but we know that people are really busy, especially in the healthcare world. And the business side is really important, but there's like sort of some unique disadvantages of a healthcare practice that make it tough to run the business. Partly because it's like a storefront, right? People are coming in and coming out all day, and you're having to react to what's
Yeah.
going on. So, like, when are you going to have the time to sit down and look at reports? In our business, we're a SaaS company, right? So we like build in time to analyze what's going on, and we don't have people, coming in and walking in all the time. So the fact that the leadership team can spend 5 or 10 minutes and know I go to this one, this one, this one, this filter, boom, I'm done is really important to us. And we don't want them to feel like they have to spend a lot of time analyzing anything. So the whole thing is designed to surface what they care about very
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we were joking around, at least we were talking about, is what's cool about your technology for me is that the large majority of clients that make the investment in line, it's almost like they're a client for life. And the reason why is because in the beginning, it feels like a risk. You're like, hey, I've never done this before. I would love to have the intelligence. You know what I mean? And then, but there's an upfront investment. You got to look at your call volumes. You got to do all that stuff. But every client that I have on the other side that sort of makes the investment, like
Yeah,
I couldn't drag them away. Once you have this information at your fingertips, it's such a game changer, and it changes operations. It changes how you communicate with surgeons. And tell you the truth is that I don't know how to say this. It basically allows you marketing to defend their place with surgeons, because surgeons they're working
totally.
like 80 hours a week, and they're just like, hey, who's filling the bus? Who's putting butts in chairs? And they're like, look, this is all the data that you need to know. That, you know what I mean? Like, in other words, it's not a mystery, and that's what's so cool about that. You know?
It's so much easier to discuss that way because otherwise it's an opinions conversation without the
Yep.
data. And I personally don't have enough formal education to be effective in an opinions discussion with any of you surgeons out there.
No,
I just have 4 years
I
undergrad,
know.
okay? But one thing I was thinking, I don't know if this is a good analogy or not, but you were talking about once people see their data, not wanting to turn that off. The movie The Matrix. I think about that a lot with when people are just like, I can't believe I know all this
Yeah.
stuff. And maybe at the beginning it's a little bit like, when Neo's asking or Morpheus is asking Neo, red pill, blue pill. If you take this one, then you're just going to wake up. You don't have to worry about this. If you take this one, I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes or whatever. And I think that's the blue pill. I can't remember, but that's what we're like. And so maybe not the greatest analogy because it's not like you're going to learn something that
Yep.
is like, oh my gosh, everything I've known is a sham. But it's just, this is the truth. This is the objective information of what's going on. And when you have that, it is difficult to imagine a world where you don't know that because that's important. It's important to know what's happening with the really valuable patient leads when they reach out. So I think once people are exposed to that, it sort of opens their eyes to like a new way of thinking about operating their business. And the good news is like we've said, the answers are not that complicated. But if you don't have the data, then you're literally guessing in the dark. And that is complicated. So once people get into that position, why in the world would they want to not know
Yep.
everything?
Yep. And the
So I
historical
agree.
data also shows, so I use this thing, I call it like the Best Buy principle, and I know it sounds weird, but everybody's like, yeah, yeah. So you could go to Best Buy and basically you got an Apple laptop and it breaks. And on Monday, you go to Best Buy and you're like, you know what? I got this problem with my laptop. And the guy at Best Buy goes over and he like looks at it, and anything short of literally opening it up, he's like, oh my gosh, so you got these things with your motherboard, you got these things here, you got these 5 pieces of code. What you need to do is this, 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 and this. And what you could do is you could totally be up again in 2 hours and stuff like that. And you look at him, you're like, dude, why do you work at Best Buy, right? And then you do all that stuff, but then 2 days later, you got one last question. So you go back into Best Buy, and that guy's not there. And you go to the next guy, and you're like, hey, here's my Apple computer and stuff like that. And he's like, apples? Oh, we don't sell fruit here, sir. You know what I mean? Like it's
Oh my
amazing how
gosh.
Best Buy has super smart people working there that love technology, and they just want to be there and talk. And then there's other people that it's just a job. You know what I mean? And
That's right.
so It's just like spin the wheel. And that's where I think that what's cool about your historical approach to data is that there are going to be those hot shots that know how to book calls and know how to, to close, I call it sales, but you know what I mean? Get people's butts in chairs.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be other people that it's just a job. But when you use the technology, when you adapt to what and learn what's working and what's not, there's simple training that can be done. And over time, you can find out, hey, these people that it's just a job, their numbers are going up. Not because we just basically did this wholesale change, but we made nuanced changes to how they do the greeting, how they ask for location information, how they ask for insurance information, all of that stuff. It's like the little stuff, that I always joke around that people that say, don't sweat the small stuff. I'm like, well, they're not in marketing because that's my job is to measure the small stuff. Because
when
no, I was
go
just saying
ahead.
because a 3% increase, no big deal. 3% increase month over
Right.
month for 12 months, that's a game changer.
Big deal.
You know what I mean?
In the biz, we call that concept the aggregation of marginal gains over time, right? It
Yeah.
ends up being something big. Speaking of Best Buy, I think you were talking about the Geek Squad, right? That's the name of the
Yep.
group that does fixes stuff. We just got a guy on our support team who led the Geek Squad at a Best Buy for a couple years. Absolute
Yep.
monster. Oh my gosh, he's
Yep.
awesome. But you're right. It's kind of a crapshoot when you go in and see what type of person you're going to get. And fortunately, we got one of the top people. So that made me think of that.
But I mean that, you know what I mean? I think that that's probably the most common experience. You're like, you walk in there and you're like, please God, get me to someone who's good. Please, you know what I mean? Because it's so funny because I've been in Best Buy and I know the geek that I'm looking for. And some other person comes and is like, can I help you? And I'm
Where'd
like,
he go?
don't talk to me.
You're not the
Exactly.
geek.
I know more than you. Give me the geek. Yeah.
It's
That's
so
cool.
funny.
Cool. So wrapping up here. So if you're watching this live in theory, meaning I'm filming this live and then I'm pushing this out around 2:00. But in post-production, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Charlie send me his demo and I'm going to put it at the end. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-release this video so that you can watch all the benefits and the pros and the cons and the story that we're telling right now. And then you can go to the end where you can see the actual demo and that'll be in the description notes as well. So anything else, Charlie, you want any questions I missed in the meantime?
No, I think I think we covered it pretty well. I mean, to summarize, you need to know what's going on, and if you don't, you're flying in the dark or whatever. And then it's those small changes, right? And they have just such a big impact. I mean, think about the value of one patient to your practice. It's significant. So it's exciting. It's exciting to be in a market where that's the case, and that means the opportunity is huge.
Yeah. And just to close the loop on the subject matter that we were talking about here, we were talking about disruptive technology. And what I mean by that, you already know what I mean, but the point I'm trying to nail home is that, we have built, health centers have been doing the same thing for so long because technology like this didn't exist. And so what happens here is that when you start to have best-in-class service, that you have amazing physicians and surgeons and a team around them that's doing the best possible work on the best day, when you start to marry that with really great technology, because I find that healthcare technology sort of moves a little bit slower than the average industry, every once in a while, technology comes in and it changes the game. And the reason why Charlie's on this call for me, and I know this comes off very salesy, but I want people that I talk to know about Liine, because the quicker I can know the real data, the more educated we're going to make about your marketing decisions, your client acquisition approach, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I love about disruption, is because, you know what, this has never been possible before, and that's kind of the power of technology. Is going to change the landscape of how technology is introduced to healthcare. So anyhow, to my visitors, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, click on the notification. We're trying to bring as much value as we can, a minimum of 3 times a week, commonly Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 2:00. There's a Facebook group called CMO Marketing Roundtable that you can check out. And there's also our digital marketing masterclass.io is the link that goes to all of our YouTube videos that we put out. We're trying to connect you, the audience, with some of the best thought leaders in the country, in the world, so that you can adapt some of the things we're saying into your own approach. And if you have any problems with that, we'd love to help. So I hope you enjoyed.
Thanks, Chris. Hello, this is Charlie Wynn from Liine. I'm going to do a quick demo of our platform for you. So Liine is a call recording and automation platform. We work with healthcare specialty practices who are trying to grow by investing in marketing strategies to drive new patient leads. And typically the practices we work with understand that even one new patient lead is really, really valuable to our business. Across the markets we work in, the average patient is worth, on the low end, hundreds of dollars, and on the high end, tens of thousands of dollars. So I've got a demo dashboard up here, and I'm going to walk you guys through two main things the platform does. One, it uses speech analytics technology to analyze all of the call recordings between your practice and new patient leads. So it tells you everything you need to know about that critical process of handling and converting leads into new patient appointments. Second thing it does is it automates and tracks the follow-up process of following up with web leads, people that are filling out web forms either on your site or somewhere on the internet, as opposed to calling you. So let's go ahead and dive in. This is the main dashboard page. There's a couple of areas to navigate through on the left-hand side, but I'm going to start with the interaction log to explain how we are doing what we are doing, which is super important and really kind of our secret sauce. So what's going on in the background here is our system sets up to record all of the inbound and outbound calls, again, between your practice and new patient leads. We transcribe the recordings. And then we've built a speech analytics AI sort of brain that is able to read the dialogue and the text just like a person would. So it can figure out, was this a new lead? Who handled it? Did this person schedule an appointment? Lots of different data points by looking at and analyzing the text. We will see you this Thursday is associated with booking, for example. And so the system will take that into account to make a determination of what happened. So if you look in the log here, this is where all the recordings are, all these data points. Where did this lead come from? We can pull in keywords for organic search, what location, what treatment type, who handled it, did they book? If not, why not? Lots of information is automatically available. What I mean by that, your staff does nothing. There's no data entry from your staff. There's no tagging of anything. All they're doing is talking on the phone like they do today, and then we get all this information. So from the leadership or ownership side of the practice, most folks will go to new lead analytics to find what they're looking for. And this whole platform is designed to give you the insight that you need within minutes. So let's start with a staff performance example. Let's say you or maybe your manager who's handling your team wants to make sure that everyone on the team is doing what they should be doing and that there's not anything they need to address to help someone perform better. They can click on staff performance, automatically know based on the person saying their name how many new patient calls that person handled, how many they booked, and thus the conversion rate. So if I was a manager and this was my practice, the first thing that jumps out is Kelsey. Kelsey's handling the most new patient leads. She has by far the lowest conversion rate. Ding, opportunity, right? This is low hanging fruit for me to make an adjustment with Kelsey, get more people in for an appointment, and statistically, that's going to have a big impact on the business. So now I've got the result. I want the insight, sort of the why behind what's happening here. So I can look at reasons why people aren't booking by team member. And on a percentage basis, I can start to figure out what's going on with Kelsey. So one thing that jumps out is this dark blue. Some of you might not have a consult fee objection. It's just an example, but this is 6% of Kelsey's calls here are not booking because of this reason. And visually, I can see she's in the top percentage of that reason not booked. Similarly, I can look at caller procrastination and then price objection. So these are all issues for Kelsey. And if I click into the chart for any of them, I am immediately taken to those 13 interactions from that time frame that didn't book because of consult fee objection. I've got the recordings, I've got the transcripts. If I'm that manager, I can now dig into the details. So that sequencing of result, insight, details like that allows me as a manager to be super efficient in figuring out where is my opportunity to get more people in the door. Same thing for marketing folks. If you're a marketing person, you can look at that sequencing from a marketing perspective. If you're an operations person, then you can look at reasons not booked overall, or you could look at like treatment types. So maybe we're having an issue converting a certain type of lead. What's going on with that? Lots of ways to filter this, tons of data. And of course, we help you in the beginning to figure out what do you need to be looking at based on your responsibilities so that you can have the insights you need to have success. So that's the data side. Remember, automated, no manual entry from staff. The other element is web form leads. So if someone goes to your website and fills out a contact form as opposed to calling, we found that most practices have alerts or notifications going to an email inbox that's shared by their staff. And we usually refer to that inbox as the graveyard because it's where leads go to rest in peace. In other words, practices are usually not good at following up with those leads, especially not quickly, but it's very difficult to track and manage things like, which of these leads have we not called? Who have we called? Who do we not need to call anymore? That's hard to deal with. So that's where this feature set that we call form flow comes in. When a patient fills out a web form, automatically goes into this centralized, organized list. So your staff doesn't have to keep track of anything there. If the form is submitted during business hours while you're open, then we enable your team to call that lead within 1 minute. How do we do that? Well, we immediately call your practice when the patient submits the form. Your practice picks up and they hear our system say, you have a new lead from Charlie, press 1 to call him. So they're picking up the phone, pressing 1 on their phone keypad, and boom, they're calling the lead right then, which makes an amazing patient experience, and B, like the chances that that person answers the phone and converts skyrockets. They're 1,000% more likely to answer the phone if you call them within 5 minutes. So we automate that for you. We're recording the outbound calls as well. So we know if your staff did not get a hold of the patient and left a voicemail, we're able to then send out text messages to prompt that person to call back. If they do call back, we also know that. So we're just capturing the entire lead journey with our speech analytics. And so for your staff, all they do is in the morning, someone needs to be assigned to come in here to form flow, and it'll tell them if they need to call this person or not. They knock that out. And then once they've talked to a lead, we know that. So we remove that lead from the active status, and your team doesn't even have to worry about it. Staff members love it because it's so easy. They don't have to track anything whatsoever. And the management team loves it because they have visibility into everything. And the automation allows the staff to be more effective at converting. Again, my name is Charlie Wynn. Company's called Liine, LIINE.com. It's really easy to reach out to us for a demo via our website. We'd love to help you out if you're interested. And thank you guys so much for the time.